This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, once again, this is Joe Banis, Chair of the Board of Directors, Council on Aging. I hereby call this meeting of the board to order. It is Tuesday, May 16th. The time is approximately 12:03 p.m. And what we will first do is I will call the roll to see that everybody's here. Joe Banis, I'm here. Tom Brown here. Pat Bruff here. Eileen Myers here. Stan Diamond here. You're there. Crystal, I'm sorry. Cote Stoke. How do you pronounce your last name?
Oh.
Uh-oh. Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Mute button.
Yeah,
we can
kind of hear you.
Yeah, we can kind of hear you, but okay. Crystal's here. Kathy Schweitzer is online, but also called for an excused absence.
I'm here.
But you're here. That's good. Okay. Chuck Connor had sent me an email asking to be excused from the meeting. He's got a work-related issue, so I said that's okay. And last but not least, we have Louise Jacobs. Louise going once, twice is absent.
Hey, Tom, can I steal a piece of paper?
Okay. Item 2, acceptance of meetings from the April meeting. My first question is, did anyone receive minutes for review from our April meeting?
I did not.
Okay. I have reason to believe that they probably aren't going to be done for this meeting. So, or at least at this time, they're not. So, okay. We'll move on to item 3, public speak.
Is anybody taking minutes? You want me to?
Would you,
That would be awesome.
we'll elevate you to sainthood if you can do that.
Oh, I need all the help I can get. Okay, so
We'll send you the transcript so you can have the timestamps and the roll call.
Thank you.
Yep.
I kind of.
I've got the roll call here too. So.
All righty.
Thank you.
Okay, public speak, due to our packed agenda today, I've limited public speak to 2 individuals, 4 minutes total. We have 2 folks here, Leslie and Sandy. Either you guys wish to comment or?
I have a comment, Sandy Eddy.
Okay.
I'm just wondering how the process goes. I mean, what's going to be happening? How do we get to the point where we eventually have another structure? I mean, what's next? I don't quite understand how this works. I know we're having a lot of meetings, but where are we?
So could we, Joe, could we just hold off on that because it's on the agenda?
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
Okay.
So we'll get,
Yeah.
typically public speak would be for something that's not on the agenda.
Okay.
So we will, sorry, you don't have a copy of it in front of you.
That's all right.
We can definitely open it up for questions when we get.
Yeah, down the road.
Okay.
We'll cover that. Okay. Leslie? No comments at this time? Okay, thank you. Okay, item 4, Highland Valley Report, Inform Update.
We are, I can tell you I'm on the Title III committee, so we are just starting the process of going through and looking at the RFPs that came through, and it's a work in progress. That's all I got to say about that, really. Okay. All I can say about that, really, technically. So.
At RFP, okay.
Title III, that is
Yes.
what?
The grants,
Okay.
that they, right? I mean, for lack of a better term, that's the easiest way to explain it. The grants that go through Highland Valley.
That come to councils on aging.
Correct.
Okay.
and some are for
Mhm.
food
Yep.
and
Food
nutrition, and the others are for other social
Lots.
services and.
Yes,
et
there's a
cetera.
whole, I'm learning a whole mix
Yeah,
bag for lack of.
And we, Easthampton, did not apply this year
for Title III
for any of that, correct?
from,
I can go into that in director's report if you
Okay.
want, or I could do it here. What's appropriate?
As you wish. If you're ready to go, let's,
I think I did this in a recent meeting. I decided not to apply because the amount of funds relative to the amount of work to get the funds,
oh,
I remember this. Yeah.
yes, you
And-
did last
excessive.
meeting.
and trialing different possibilities with the administration. It sounded as though the things I would write the grant for would be rejected, but that might not be true depending on who's on the committee. So we could always try again in the future.
I couldn't vote on them anyway, because I'm not allowed to vote on the ones that are
conflict of interest.
correct. So,
But we do have a revolving account with Highland Valley old grant funds in it that we use for a purpose that they did approve. And
So
we-
I'm sorry,
so we,
not that
you don't have to
fast.
write everything down.
Mm-mm,
We have
but we
old-
currently have,
remaining Title III grant funds
yeah,
from Highland Valley, and we're using them for the same purpose we wrote them for. This predated my tenure here.
yeah,
So I felt comfortable that we have those funds for that purpose.
Yep.
And didn't want to write for
New ones.
another $2,000 or $3,000 or $1,500 for the same purpose
yes.
yet.
Cool. All right.
that's
We're good? Yep. Okay, wonderful. Item 5, Director's Report.
Okay,
Inform update. Cindy, the floor is yours.
can you put the agenda slightly closer to me and I can see what I said I would talk about? So just keep me on task, like cut
Aye,
me
aye, ma'am.
off,
Yep.
okay?
Okay,
All right, so, financial report is folded into this item this time. So
that's the expense control report.
that's one part of it. So like I've been telling you, I get a monthly expense control report of the city appropriations and where we're at in spending them. And I promise that this time, instead of focusing on that, because you already know why we're
Right.
underspent here due to late hiring, and some staff illness, and resignation. So what I was gonna focus on this time was our revolving accounts and our grant funds. And, I gave you, okay, so this is more of a discussion. This piece that I created, I wouldn't hand out here, and then it's in the public record because there's so many preliminary numbers. And then when I get the general ledger, which is every 6 months, so when I get that at the end of June, beginning of July, then I could come to the July meeting or the August meeting with a printed out, clean, assessment of where we were for this past year. So our various accounts, so our van account, which is where all the money that people give us $4 at a time, plus the Helping Hands Society gives us a yearly donation for our van account. That going into the year was I estimated that around $22,000. We've received in donations and fees about $20,000. We've only expended $13,000 this year on repairs. And so I estimate that our balance at this time in the van account is about $41,000. I'm about to use a good chunk for the new vehicles that we got. We have to put wraps on with the new logos and everything. And then, hopefully with a newer fleet, a refreshed fleet over the next few years, we'll have even fewer repairs, but I don't know enough about vehicles to know that that's for sure. So, Eileen's taking minutes right now, so you're okay. So it's good to have this money in this account because
Eileen's taking the
when
notes
we
right now.
get earmarks or a grant to buy a vehicle, it's not always for the full amount of the vehicle. So we want to have money in here, or let's just say we get into another accident. Last time we got a new vehicle, there was an accident that totaled the vehicle, and then we were stuck, and it was it was what it was. But then we had to accept a vehicle as a donation from PBTA that was so old, it was really not good. So this way, if we have some money in this account, then perhaps we won't get into that situation again. If something catastrophic happens,
Right.
we could actually replace the vehicle and not with something that's already beyond its life. Okay. The fitness account. The fitness account, it's not just used for exercise and wellness. What it is it's a revolving account the city allows us to have where all of the class fees and activity fees go into that. So as opposed to the rides, if you take Zumba and you pay us $5, it goes into this account. That account was suffering from the pandemic greatly because fewer people were having those fitness memberships at $75 a pop for in town and $115 for out of town. And there were fewer classes, and then we didn't charge fees for all the online virtual classes that we did. So everything was free, and in fact, the fitness room was free for a while. So that account going into the year was at almost $25,000, I calculate. We've received in fees at $8,800 over the course of the year so far. We're almost done with the year, and we've spent out about $5,500. If you want the breakdown of the deposits, about $3,300 from gym memberships and about $5,500 from class and trip fees. So to my reckoning, what we spend from this account are all the refreshments that the Friends group doesn't cover, all the art supplies and all that kind of stuff. Very little for administration. It's almost all for participants. So what I figure is that for the year, we took in enough fees and donations from the public as went out to provide those activities. So, and then in terms of the fitness memberships, we only took in about $3,300. We only have about 48 active members, and that's not even enough to buy the new treadmill that I need. So it's a good thing that we're carrying a balance in that account of well over $20,000. Because if you think about it, if I need to buy 2 pieces of equipment, that's $8,000 to $10,000 right there. So what I decided to do before committing to, this is an enhanced financial report. So before committing to replace equipment that needs to be fixed or replaced in the fitness room, I'm looking into with the YMCA whether we could have a lease through the YMCA because we're too small to have a lease as opposed to buying equipment. And maybe in the long run, it might not save us money, I'm not sure, but it would allow us to replace equipment sooner and have more modern equipment. So towards that end, I met with all the fitness members who would come in, which was almost half of our fitness members the other day. And we talked about this issue and the future of the fitness room and what we should have in it and so on. So I'm still working on that. I project that we wouldn't be able to get those purchases made this fiscal year, but hopefully soon. So hopefully within the next 3 months, we would spend quite a bit of that money on either a lease or buying fitness equipment. That, when I say that that's where refreshments and art supplies and that kind of thing come from for all the classes and workshops you see in the newsletter, we also have our formula grant from the state, and I'll go into that in a minute. And that also helps pay for things. We weren't using it for supplies, but I have started using it a little bit for equipment. Okay, so moving on. So the next account we have is the Highland Valley money that I just mentioned. So where that's at is, I estimated it was about 24,000 coming into this year, that we have about just over 25,000, that we had 25,500 coming into the year. We have just over 24,000 now. The grant the most recent grant was not in this fiscal year. And we've expended about almost $1,400 on mileage through part of April to pay all those volunteer drivers we have who are doing the medical and other errand rides. Now, what we anticipate is it's a good amount for this program to have in the bank, but we anticipate that now that we've tripled the number of drivers that are asking for the mileage, that that next year we would spend more like $3,300 or more if the federal rate goes up. That one's the federal rate, not the city rate, which 50 cents versus like 65 cents or something. That is justified by the fact that these are federal funds and these are volunteers. And so, and they're coming to us somewhat through RSVP, another federal program. So we're not going to pay them the state rate.
So can I ask, so that money, and I just want to be clear. So that 25,000 from that grants in the past, so that's our money, meaning it's sitting in an account. It's not like if we don't use it, we lose it.
I checked with Kelly McCarthy at Highland Valley.
Perfect. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, and that was the money that for the pandemic we used as the pass through for shoppers to pay us back when we did grocery shopping for them.
Yeah.
But the money that came in had already gone out to pay for the groceries.
Right,
So none of that money is the grocery money. All of that money is previous grants, and I don't know the story of why it's there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, our gift account. That is we're very lucky to have a city that allows us to have revolving accounts at all, and that allows us to have a gift account. Some municipalities, the COAs are totally dependent on their friends group to receive gifts. And then obviously the friends make their own, I'm pointing at the friends, but the friends make their own decisions. Even though their bylaws are to support the COA and the seniors of Easthampton, they still have choices to make within that. The fact that people make donations and organizations make donations, this way we have a place to put those donations. The biggest share of what is in that account was a bequest made some years ago where the estate was settled, and you know more about that than I do. So that account estimated coming in was just under 21,000. Our balance now, I calculate at just about 15,000, and that is because this year I expended more than people typically expend from that account who have been in this position, because we got a donation that was sort of designated. It was, you know, someone had just died and it was for the enjoyment of the seniors and to promote joy. So I bought these 2 wing chairs that are in front of the fireplace. And I think I maybe bought the beverage cart with that, which is providing those things are providing a lot of joy. So why just sit on that money? It's not like we're building a new senior center any minute, which is what I was saving it for. And that's a drop in the bucket for new senior center. Finally, the biggie is the Executive Office of Elder Affairs Formula Grant, which if you remember is $12 per senior, and they counted more seniors this year. So it went up from about $40,000 to $62,544. Plus we had about $13,000 left from last year. And so now what I calculate is that I project that our balance from that grand total of about $75,000, I project our balance going into next year will be about $27,000 after payroll is done for the year, and some expenses that I want to make before the end of the fiscal year. Like if we can get the consulting we need to get the new AV equipment, you know, to get a TV and a monitor and some kind of hearing devices and microphones and all that stuff, that'll be expensive. Right now, not including payroll, it's at about $54,000. The payroll that will be made from this account by all time all is said and done is $24,000 this year. Okay, and going into next year on that, what I'm planning is that. Okay. So, try to find that. So based on what I know we're gonna spend this year and my projected for next year, which I'll give you next time, because this is all about this year, I project that we could easily spend a few thousand over the 62,000 that we're getting in the rough budget I made up for next year, but that's okay because we'll have funds left from what we have this year going into next year. And then I calculated out July to December. How much would we spend from the formula grant? Because we don't get the new grant for FY23 until between November and February. So the city has not said we have to stay in the black on that. We could go into a deficit because they know the money's coming.
Mhm.
But if we were ever told, no, don't get into a deficit, we would be fine through December. And I thought it would be better to run it that way, but we don't have to. Okay, so that's where we're at in terms of the financial report. Before I go on to more programmatic and admin stuff, does anybody have any questions about the financial information?
You said a clean copy of what you just told us will be forthcoming, like in July meeting.
So what would be
I just wonder about my minutes. I've been
Oh,
trying
don't
to-
worry, you're taking too much detail.
Okay.
This isn't informed. You just
I
need to
just
do
about
the
got everything.
decision. You just need to do
Don't be a
decisions.
masochist. Eileen.
We'll talk about minutes another time.
Got it.
Okay,
I
so
was gonna
what
say,
you
I
will
think-
get next time is that what you would get in July is that I will have had the ledger where I will take every single expense and deposit that we've made and justify it against what the auditor has, so that there's everything is reconciled. And then I'll give you the totals of what we spent this year, what we took in this year. So yes, then I will
Okay.
hand that out,
So I
like I
guess,
did in January.
so if I have to sum it up, it's like you get the money that you spend in any particular year is a combination of new money and old money. And it's coming from multiple sources of which the state is only one, but
That's right, and there's tradition in how we spent money from each revenue account, like what kinds of things we spent it on.
and that's the third dimension, how much flexibility with each account you have
Right,
in terms of spending it, whether it has to be earmarked for specific things or it can be used for more general purposes.
and
Stan has questions.
Stan,
Yes, the mayor has made a commitment to replace all city vehicles with electric vehicles. Are our vans considered city vehicles?
our vans are city vehicles. The reason that they're not being replaced with electric vehicles is that we're buying them off the state contract. So for example, the one we're getting this summer through PVTA, the state contract had no choices for EVs. The next time we need a new vehicle through PVTA, we don't know what will happen. The state is still working on its next procurement contract. Then for the van that we bought ourselves as a city with our earmark, we again had no choices for that size vehicle. So for a passenger vehicle to be EV that can carry this many people and be ADA, you would have to aftermarket very expensively create an electric vehicle. So that option doesn't exist for us right now. So the mayor approved, even though the mayor wanted us to get an EV, she approved the vehicles that we are buying for now.
Okay.
All right. Did you have a
Question.
Louise? All right.
Yeah, sorry, I'm stunned by that information, but I'll try not to give my opinion of the various actors in this, but I do think we should almost officially appeal to not the mayor, but there are some people in Easthampton who are a lot more knowledgeable than I am about climate change and its complex and everything. And I kind of feel we should put them on it because actually, you know, we should at least have the choice. And this is beyond ridiculous that we don't. But it's also bigger than we are. But I think we should try to channel some sort of protest in a useful direction.
Do you mean a protest against like Ford Motor Company for not making a passenger vehicle that has?
Sorry, no, I do not. It's Massachusetts' job. It's the Commonwealth's job, and they should get on it. And they should never put a senior center or any other body in the position of to use to access your state grant. You have to take diesel or petrol, but you know, not electric vehicles. It's that simple, and it's ridiculous.
Okay.
And there are people who could have answered your question as well.
It's unfortunate.
This is the way state government works.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's either a take it or leave it. And for us to, given our scarce resources, the other issues that we have in front of us, I mean, I don't think we have the man or person power to spare to start picking fights with them.
We don't, but we can direct this information or ammunition on, I forget what her name is, but a few of the people who are busy lobbying and everything else who live within our city who do. I'm not going to go running to my local councillor and say, hey, Tom, here's an injustice, you should do something about it. But I'm just suggesting, yeah.
Just so everybody knows, I did check with Cassie Traeger and like the whole team that's working on electrifying the fleet. Like all this started well before the announcements you heard this year. Like these purchases started a year plus ago. Yeah. And I did check with that whole team early on. I called Mass DOT directly and talked with them. I went to all the like grant meetings. I talked with our team here and all said it's early days in large passenger vehicles of this kind, as opposed to like, you know, there are electric city buses, but we're not buying a city bus.
Right.
Do you want me to move on to the other items or do people have more questions?
No, let's continue. We've got a lot to discuss and.
Okay.
So let's keep going.
I have to log in again, sorry, because we took a little bit.
I mean, they don't have technology that keeps up with you.
So, okay. So, next, okay. Personnel, no.
Whatever you wish.
I want to respond to transportation. So we had an outstanding question last time. Could I, tell us what our rejection rate is with our rides? So I went back and looked at the papers and we tracked from July 1 into October. I'm not sure how religiously it was tracked. And then from October through March, there were a few and then nothing after that. So I think the front desk was feeling like they were satisfying the need and stopped writing down, this one was rejected, this one was rejected. So I don't know that the numbers are representative of what actually happened. I would need to, so it wasn't worth printing that out and bringing that to you. Well, I can't anyway, because the names are on it. So I can't do, I have nothing to measure it against from the past either.
Eileen?
Regarding that, I did hear from, an individual that would have required transportation that wanted to go to the meal that was put on by the Helping Hand. I think it was on a Sunday, I'm not sure.
Yes.
And no transportation was available. So it's just something that we may want to consider in the future, maybe working with the Helping Hand regarding supplementing transportation, but that was a complaint that I received personally, and I said I would bring it up.
So there's a number of community activities where we will get one or two people who say I needed transportation to go, whether it's a brunch like that, the farmer's market on a Sunday or something like that. So we don't provide transportation on the nights or weekends unless it's one of our events that we've organized and it's like a special field trip.
Okay.
And then we don't provide, and then we only provide transportation during the week until a specific time of the day. And most of the transportation we do is for medical and basic needs like grocery shopping. And so when we are trying to help people socialize or be entertained, go to a meal, those types of things, those are our organized activities. So it would be something this board could talk about is, would they like to see a programmatic shift or expansion where the Council on Aging also provides that kind of transportation, like keeps a list or makes a priority list of, I'll be done in a sec, Louise, makes a priority list of, you know, here's the kinds of things, parades and meals and events that people want to do this year or in this next few months. Can the Council on Aging do it? Right now, we can't because we're limited in how much transportation can provide in our budget, our approved budget. So it would be something where we'd have to strategize and then put it forward as a proposal next fiscal year, or no, we could change things this fiscal year, but something else would have to be subtracted in order to do it. But people can keep the suggestions coming.
Okay. Louise?
Yeah, because I think, sorry. I think I asked that question or requested originally. Not looking at my minutes because I'm not connected here, but yeah. And the reason was twofold. I haven't got a specific one rejected request like Eileen does because, but I'm on the volunteer list of Easthampton neighbors, and I know there's a steady call for even the medical. They're not leaving it. I know they connected, they request from you and Crips Cross. I'm saying it just does not exist. I mean, first, I think it's difficult because we don't have enough volunteer drivers. Second, I don't want to say names, but at least half a dozen people I could reel off who've been desperate to get to medical appointments for their Easthampton residents. So I think we've got a real problem. I don't know the answer. Third, as far as socializing and everything, theirs is different. Like people have given up. And this is important for what I'll say later, but you're talking about what the senior center runs. You'll have two people who want to go to this show. One person who's desperate who want to go that in the evening. If we're going to diversify, if we're going to expand, a lot of people who just shrug off and say the senior center's nothing to do with me, they can never meet anything. We're going to get those scattered. And because transportation, as you get older, post for child support becomes a sudden problem that you never anticipated 20 years ago. So I just think this is it's not answers, and I would like some really system way that we can log, simple way that they can be logged.
Yes, so that's what I was just going to say. So so with the shift in our front desk personnel, it's an opportunity to redo how we record the transportation requests. And what we're going to be doing is we're trying to, so our system that we have for this is not very good. In fact, the software company even says it's not very good and they're going to replace it with another module, and it's still in beta testing. So we're going to try using the system that we have, and there's a way to put in a ride request before delivering the ride and then go back in and click undelivered. What we can't necessarily do is, was it canceled because the doctor canceled the surgery, or was it undelivered because we couldn't do it? I don't know how fine a point we can put on it, but we need a database where we can record these things, because it's very difficult to make comparisons when things are just scribbled on paper. You can hardly read people's handwriting, and there's like 6 people at the reception desk, and they might not all be doing the same thing.
Do those
because I don't.
Sorry, I was involved in
but let's go into database discussion another time. But the point is, what I did want to say about transportation is we're doing some incredible things, where we have a very, if you look in the newsletter, a very wide range, if you look over the course of the last few months, of all the different events, activities, field trips, concerts we're taking people to. So people should be able to find something. It's just limited numbers can go.
In the interest of moving forward, is there anyone
That's really important
that you really want to touch on?
Yeah. Policies.
Policies.
Okay. The Council on Aging has very few policies that are printed and available for people to see about using the senior center or using transportation. The transportation policy is like 12, 15 years old. The behavior policy, which I think I handed out, is insufficient for purpose in some ways, in that the consequences are not very clearly defined of if you violate these policies. Very few people violate them in a way that has ever, I checked with Linda today, you know, she only ever used these with maybe one person.
Yeah.
I have had multiple incidents lately that seem like they violate the policies, but so what I would like to just request of the board is that we have a policy subcommittee that works with me or our program manager or both. We look at all of our policies and we look at the huge contribution of policies from other centers that are available. And then in fiscal year 24, we'll have legal available to us again. It's frozen, you know, for the year now, so that if we draft them, then they can go to legal and get looked at, and then we can bring them back here and you folks can vote on them. So that's a biggie for me, because how can you expect people to abide by policies if they're only posted on the internet and maybe it's, you know, a document like this? We need to have a strategy, like write some things up and put them around the center on the walls. Like here we ... you know, and here's where to go if you have a problem in your card playing group or in your bingo game or wherever. And, you know, so yeah.
This sounds focused more toward behavioral policies, right?
Well, it's not just that. There's a lot of things that happen at senior centers, like use of the senior center. There's policies around how you can't, for example, as a private citizen, just go in and use it for remote work. One senior center had a big problem with that. A board member or somebody felt like they could just go in and borrow a room and do their remote work. Not okay. Or we get requests all the time. Could you hold a class in here, but it's for a private purpose, or just various things. And then one last thing about policies, or really more procedures, is that I'm going to meet with a fire chief, because he's the city's emergency planner. Whatever emergency plan we have is not sufficient. I think we have a false policy, what happens when somebody falls, but we really need a whole emergency policy for the center. And so I'll work on that with him. And then again, if we had a policy subcommittee, then that subcommittee could, and it could just be a task force, it doesn't have to meet all year, could look at these things.
Okay, just speaking to that, would you like that committee, or would you like us to vote on the creation of that committee at this point?
I don't know if it gets done in director's report or if it would be new business and it would be warned and it would be next time.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, well, why don't we, let's defer that until next time. And then let's move on to what we need to do.
So we'll come back to the other items I didn't get to over the next couple of months and report back on the other items.
Okay, so our next item is 6 Old Business Building Subcommittee update. Do we have
I don't know that we have any specific
anything
updates,
specific to
but
update?
for the sake of the question we had earlier, I wonder if you can remind us
What the next step was?
what you covered after your discussion with the mayor about those steps that she was
looking for.
She was looking,
And I actually have even a follow-up to that. Okay. So last time what we talked about was that this board could write to the mayor, request the formation of a building committee for the purpose of studying site feasibility for a new senior center. And that ideally that would come at a time when perhaps funds could be appropriated to do that. And, there's some specific things that, the board could put in a letter.
Hold on, I got confused by a couple of things. The request of the mayor would be to create a building committee.
Create a building committee, number one, that's part one of it.
Yep.
And part two was to request that a site study be conducted and, that it include the phases of the public engagement piece through looking at potential sites to the point of narrowing down best site or sites.
So just not to hamstring this too far down. Once the committee's created, those other things you're talking about would happen under the purview of that committee.
Of that committee.
So we don't want to necessarily try to handcuff that committee. They would have to be looking at sites, they would have to be looking at the public input, the focus groups, that kind of thing. They would set that all up to keep the ball rolling. I think the key is the mayor's willing to create the committee. That's what starts the ball rolling down the hill.
Right. But then I learned that if you wanted to submit for an appropriation this fall, apparently we already would have needed to have done that piece. That doesn't mean there aren't potential funds for such a study that could come in a different way. So it's up to the board what you want to do next. But I didn't understand that because it's in FY24, but apparently it crosses fiscal years, making those requests back in the late winter, early spring.
So we should have done this like a number of months ago.
No, because she said to write to her more towards the fall, but.
Mind the school building committee that Pat and I so dearly love. It's still in existence and has been running for 8 years. So there's no, to your point, there's no concern about what fiscal year I'm in or whatever. It's almost a continuum of, if you needed money for a study or a focus group or to bring in a consultant or what have you, that money sort of came along as part of the package. So we're going to fund the whole thing.
And you can then use those funds over how many fiscal years you need to get it done. Okay, all right.
So
I don't think we missed anything.
So it's not like, this year we have to request money for 24 and then next year 25. And so it's basically, we just request some amount of money, which then can be applied in whichever fiscal year the funds are needed.
Come from the top down to that committee.
Okay.
And again, with all due respect to our committee, this committee of however number the mayor sees fit will probably only include 2 or 3 members from this board.
Right.
It's not our whole board, right? Because she will be looking for people, that have expertise in the construction business or expertise in real estate or what. So she'll be looking for a wide variety, diversity, if you will, of expertise to bring to that building committee.
Did you say that there's still in existence? Did you want to school committees? And I can't hear you. Did you say that?
He did.
I'm sorry. We need better acoustics because I know it's the thing in the background. But did you say that the school committee, the building one, still exists?
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
How much? I mean, can we just piggyback and?
No.
The mayor is wise to that.
It's a different level of expertise. It's a different type of expertise you need for each.
It's a capital project.
Yeah.
Exactly. But Cindy would definitely be on it as, just like the superintendent was on the school building committee. And then 2 or 3 members from this group.
Eileen?
Just briefly, Joe and I went on June 1st to South Hadley's new senior center. They, their Friends Committee and the public created in 2011 through 2012, a new senior center gift fund. In 2017, they did a feasibility study. In 2019, they decided to, rather than do a 2.5 override, they did a bond for a senior center stabilization fund. They opened up, what was it, 2002? It was during COVID.
2020.
So they had a real
21 or
soft
22.
kind of opening because of COVID.
Yeah.
But it took that long. So I know it's tedious, and, you know, but I just wanted to give you a perception of, you know, I was shocked how long that took. But they had a good amount of cash. They were expanding a center they already had. They had room. So a lot of it would be easier than, you never know. We don't know which way we're going to go, but it took them that long. So I just wanted to give you an idea of, and that is a beautiful
And remember
center.
Joe's statement from the beginning, this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah,
So we'll take time.
Even after I'm dead, you can put that on my head. You know.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same thing. How many of us will live long enough to see it, so to speak?
well, we can all make sure we bequeath.
Yeah.
Live a healthy
To the
life,
fund.
Louise.
To our children.
So Cindy,
To the
we should,
fund.
as the board, we should write that letter to the mayor requesting the establishment of a senior center building committee.
And she's interested in the timeline that you
The fall,
would
right?
propose for the process that includes the formation of the committee, doing the study. Like, is it informed by all the studying that you've done of the other centers? Would like to, you know, like a sample timeline for creating a new senior center, like what you would like to see in that letter.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. This board should, as part of that request, say, you know, we visited all these places, here's what we'd like to see. Or she's going to be looking eventually for the public input to what I would like to see in the senior center. But again, not to handcuff that new committee. But that new committee is pretty much going to establish the timeline.
Yeah.
I can understand the mayor's desire to have us say, based on the work we've done already, all these visits, what would you like to see in the senior center as a board? I would say, build us a resound, let alone we're all set.
And the other thing was the time, the time frame for which we should be presenting this to the mayor was sometime in the fall, correct? Was it not late September or early October?
I think that was it should have been, it was stated during the last meeting. So what the timeline was to get this done, and I think it was fall.
But that was based on the notion that it was time when city council would be looking at free cash, and now, from what I understand, it's too late to make a request like that, so I don't know.
I think we'll send that letter tomorrow. And I don't mean to say that it has to be tomorrow, but to my point, the letter could be sent now, because I don't know how long it's going to take the mayor to act on that. And what protocol she has to go through to establish a new committee. And then the phone calls, the asks that she has to put out to the folks that she feels.
For the people, yeah, that she trusts who have expertise in different areas that she.
I think you had a question.
Okay, no, I think we're good. I just wanted to make sure we had this. Leslie, did you?
My only comment, it's a comment,
Okay,
is public input is really critical to this.
Can you speak up?
yeah,
Public
You all
input will be
know that.
critical.
yeah, we know that.
Yeah.
Again, this,
I'm starting to draft such a letter, and you'll be one of the first people to know. And you too, Patrick, even though you.
Okay.
again, not to belabor that point about public input, but the school building committee had 6 public forums where they allowed the public not only to allow input, but to present where transparency. So here's where we are. Here's the sites we're looking at. Here's what, you know, the board has said they'd like to see. You know, it goes both ways, the communication. So this is the key. This gets the ball rolling.
Okay.
Once she establishes that committee, it's it takes on a life of its own.
So you're gonna be drafting a letter?
Yes, I am. But don't expect it tomorrow,
No.
or maybe even next week. Okay, I'd like to move on because we still have a couple of things to do. Okay, Louise, I think the ball's yours and you have a choice of either talking about the minutes or the situation with the minutes, or you can talk about the diversity, inclusion, and outreach.
If I have between 3 and 5 minutes, I'll talk about those.
Okay, yeah, you got between 3 and 5 minutes.
I think maybe that because,
Sure. Why don't you handle the minutes first?
well, they're kind of interconnected. It will definitely get in. I'm trying. I mean, Cindy made a statement. Talk about that it's hard to stay focused and avoid.
Well, do your
answer
best
that.
to focus.
Well, it's relevant. Okay. The personal, I have to read because I've come into conflict with the center these past few weeks, and this is written about 2 weeks ago when I came back as a user of the services. And I will say that this was Spectrum in its wisdom while I was away. New people moved in upstairs. They created 2 new accounts upstairs, and they canceled mine, quote unquote, at my request. And it took me 2 hours on the phone, which is physically painful for me the next day from Utah, because I heard it. And they're saying, yes, it's our mistake. No, we cannot reconnect you. We can't give you the same plan. And that's still in abeyance. So if anybody wants to join me marching on Spectrum and Charter and Bloody, and that is still having a serious impact on my life. I mean, to me, the internet connectivity is completely a utility. I've gone through the COVID, but I've gone through before it. I don't think twice about it. I know, and I made assumptions that were not true, and that's how this connects. I'm just saying that. And I really felt that there was no, I know the senior center doesn't have the resources to lend me somebody to spend the next 2 hours on. I still literally have and this is just me, but I literally have ended up with infected ears. I've had to go through the doctor thing. This was big. And because my 70s now, not my 20s or 30s or 40s, it had the potential, which would have been a bloody pain in the neck. But that's what happens when you're getting older. Got no assistance. And I forgot the exact details. So what I was going to say is basically I am willing to resign as secretary. There seems to be a very prepared possible replacement here. My plan was to take the minutes from this meeting, but to do that, and this is where the mayor and the whole everything falls down. I mentioned it before. I don't have Word. Some people don't even know what I'm talking about. For me, that's a big problem. I still don't have internet access in this office, which I didn't know how they do it, but how do you take notes? I mean, I did remember to download my statement into Pages, but I mean, there's contention here. I'm trying to attend in person because there's a difference of how you connect with people, and I did not know anyone here before. But on the other hand, I don't have any of these problems at home. I mean, it's more comfortable for me. It's more efficient, and it goes deeper than just I left my bloody coffee at home, and if I'd been there, I could have woke up in an minute. So having said all that, and that's sort of, I'm using myself as poster child A because it feeds into diversity, it feeds into inclusion, it feeds into who feels comfortable and who doesn't, even approaching the senior center. And I'm probably going over. Okay, we got about 3 things. The first is, let's be real about this. You've got the baby boomer generation in spades coming in. That's creating the huge demographic surge. Baby boomers split pretty easily. If anybody else remembers 1968, they were the people who supported the Vietnam War and voted for Nixon. I know few would want it. Now, on the other hand, there were the Woodstock Nation people who were also out on the streets of Chicago, Chicago 7. If you want to connect with the race, there was Bobby Seale.
Abby Hoffman.
Yeah, no, but Bobby Seale was trussed like some bloody chicken so that they could pull him into it. Remember that? That's our roots. We're two very different groups of people. Those who are not that old can sort of imagine, want to put some Trump people and some others in the same room. I think we should at least start discussing it. I think there's to say, we're the senior center, we'll play social workers, we'll say.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I've just been informed that the mayor has a meeting in here at 1 o'clock.
The mayor can bloody fix her schedule, but okay.
All right.
And I will, I can't circulate.
If we can just sort of.
Yeah, I'll finish up.
Close the loop on the.
I'll finish up that
Secretary.
one. Okay. Well, that's up to you guys. I'll do one more if you want. You can figure out what you're gonna do about the secretary thing. I mean, I might do it from home because I'm getting tired, but remote, but either way. Number two, to finish what I was saying, we can either play social workers, we come and say, this is what you want. I heard this story this week. This is what you need, so here's what we're going to supply. Or we can have respect for our elders, for heaven's sakes. We're not 70 years old, and decide we're going to find out what people want. I've got a lot of feelings about that, and they're a lot harder to deliver, but they're a lot more honest. And I think it's time that was in the open. My third, just quickie, because I think it's a quick story, is I have a friend. I went to the fire extinguisher thing. And kudos to Chief Norris, it was very good. But I have a friend who badly needs it, who is definitely a senior, who is currently going blind, and she's white. And you will not get her into the public safety, the so-called public safety complex voluntarily. I can just say that much. Do we even have that awareness? And I'll leave it there, but I just want to flag some.
So in terms of the secretary position, you've started on the minutes from the last meeting, is that correct? Okay, if you can just, whatever shape they're in.
Oh, I just have to, yeah,
Either, you know, edit them a little bit.
I literally have not had an hour. I've been in bed with the blank spectrum. I will get them to you, they'll be late.
But
We
just,
have the transcript.
yeah, because we'll figure something out.
I've got something right here which needs to be.
And basically then the secretary position will transition over to, I guess Eileen's indicated a willingness to take that on, so.
I'm not sure she did.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I will volunteer, but are you bringing it to the floor?
Yeah, we need to vote on that position.
Yeah, we got 2 minutes.
Okay, that's what but.
Sorry.
Okay, this is my note.
Hang on.
I would nominate Eileen Myers as secretary going forward.
I second. If she's interested.
She was hoping it wouldn't be a second.
Okay,
Yeah.
do we need to call the roll, or can we just have by acclamation?
By acclamation, if you see.
All those in favor of Eileen, taking the job as secretary, could I see hands, please?
Aye.
Okay.
Kathy, can you see Kathy's hand?
Kathy, yeah, I say aye.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Kathy.
Oh, my God.
All right, so it's unanimous.
Thank you.
And at the same time, I'd like to recognize the work that Louise has done up until, even including what she's gonna do.
This is what I tried to last
so
meeting.
thank you for the work you've done.
Somebody else can sit there and listen to these.
I have to go to another meeting.
Oh, that's right, you gotta go, and we should probably adjourn as well.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Pat seconds.
All in favor?
All in favor, hands or ayes?
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Kathy
Thanks,
says aye.
Liz. All right, thanks, guys.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.